Welcome to the Dinosaur George podcast, a show about paleontology and other earth sciences. Dinosaur George is a public speaker, author, and TV host with 30 years of study in paleontology. He has performed live in over 4,500 events across the US and Canada. Now, here is Dinosaur George.
Well, hey there, everybody. Welcome to the show. My name is George Blessing, but people call me Dinosaur George. Why do they call me Dinosaur George? It's because I am incredibly old. For all of you that love dinosaurs and paleontology and anything to do with science and nature, including geology, I hope you enjoy the show, and I hope you come back and listen to it. And most importantly, I hope you share it with your friends, because the more listeners I have, the easier it is for me to dedicate time to record some of these. In this episode, our featured creature is going to be Massospondylus, a really cool dinosaur, one that a lot of people don't know about. So Massospondylus is the guy, and I like him, and I think you're going to enjoy learning about him. Also, I have an interview with an up-and-coming young paleontologist. I'm very excited about this. He's a good guy and a good friend, so I'm looking forward to introducing you to him. And then finally, I'll answer a couple of listener-submitted questions through our Ask Dinosaur George page. So sit back and relax, and let's get ready to go.
It was the largest predator in North America and known simply as the King. Now you can own fossil replicas from Tyrannosaurus Rex, the king of the dinosaurs. Our online store is filled with T-Rex teeth, claws, skulls, and more. Display them in your room or office, or use them as teaching aids in the classroom. Our prices are affordable, and we don't add excessive shipping fees. They are great gifts for anyone who likes dinosaurs. Go to store.dinosaurgeorge.com to see our wide selection.
It's time for our Feature Creature segment. If you would like to suggest a creature, go to dinosaurgeorgepodcast.com and post it in the comments section of this episode, or email us your suggestions to contact@dinosaurgeorge.com. And now, our feature creature.
The feature creature for this episode is Massospondylus. This is an animal that is a prosauropod, meaning it's not a sauropod the way we think of sauropods. You know, if I say the word sauropod, most people immediately envision Brachiosaurus or Diplodocus, dinosaurs like that. But Massospondylus comes along much earlier in sort of a predecessor to those gigantic sauropods that show up in the Jurassic and the Cretaceous. Massospondylus is a bipedal herbivore, and for you young people, that means he walks on two legs and he eats plants. Now, this thing was from the early Jurassic, so you're going back to some of the earlier dinosaurs. Not the earliest, because they show up in the Triassic, but the early Jurassic is when this dinosaur appears. Fossil remains have been found in Zimbabwe, Africa, and then in southwestern United States. So you may ask, well, how does a dinosaur end up in the southern United States and in Zimbabwe, Africa? Well, it's one more bit of evidence to demonstrate how the Earth's continents were all one, the individual continents were one gigantic landmass. And so the dinosaur had the ability to simply walk around between those two areas, because at one time Africa and North America were connected. This thing is not big. It's 4 meters or 13 feet long and weighed about 300 pounds. So it's not a really large dinosaur. It's related to, what's his name? Oh my gosh, my mind just went blank. Is it Lufuengosaurus? Is that how you pronounce it? And then there's another one, Plateosaurus. Yeah, they're all, he's from, or this is from that family. Now here's what's kind of cool about this dinosaur. In 2006, dozens of fossilized eggs from this dinosaur were discovered in the Golden Gate Highlands National Park, which is in South Africa. Now, when I say dozens, I mean dozens. And what's really cool about it is this formation that's been unearthed. It used to be on the bank of a big lake, a freshwater lake. And so apparently these dinosaurs came there to lay their eggs. But what they found was that they found layer upon layer of these, and that suggests that these dinosaurs come to this same spot year after year to lay their eggs, very similar to what modern birds do. You know, birds will often travel to a given area, and usually it's an area that is limited or has limited number of predators. So I wonder, and I'm not familiar if they're not, but I wonder if they've ever found in the same area really big theropods. I wonder if that's the reason why these animals are choosing this area to come in and lay their eggs. I don't know enough about it, but I hope somebody out there does, and maybe they can post on my podcast page some notes about it. And again, my podcast, you can find it at dinosaurgeorgepodcast.com. I can't believe I can't remember my own podcast. So anyway, now here's the other thing that's kind of cool about this. They didn't find any evidence of an actual nest, meaning there didn't appear to be indentations in the ground. It didn't appear that there was foliage that was covering them. Now, naturally, that stuff could have possibly blown away or decomposed before it fossilized, but you would think they would have found something. Instead, what it looks like is that the female had laid their eggs in a very neat row directly onto the ground. And if that is the case, it begs the question then, were these dinosaurs perhaps sitting on the eggs? Now, 300-pound dinosaur sitting on an egg isn't right, but what about sort of the way some larger animals will sort of squat over the eggs to protect them from direct sunlight or from predators? Makes you wonder how exactly they tended to those babies. So some of the eggs had embryos in them, fossilized embryos. That's how they know which dinosaur they belong to. You can't simply look at an egg and from a distance say, oh, that belongs to X because of the shape, because a lot of dinosaurs have the same shaped eggs as other species, so you can't just make a random guess. But some of these had actual fossilized embryos. What that means is the baby inside was really close to hatching, and whatever happened to them, whether it was flooding, whether it was a sandstorm, I'm not sure what the evidence suggests caused them not to hatch. But whatever did it, caught them at the right time before the babies were able to get out of the egg. And that then allows paleontologists to see these developed embryos inside. And from what they can tell from the embryos, it looks as though the babies, first they were born with no teeth. So how did they eat? Makes you wonder if the parents weren't regurgitating chewed up vegetation or chewing it for them and dropping it down to the babies. They had to be able to take in nutrition somehow, but if they don't have any teeth when they're born, it's got to be pre-chewed. So once again, it gives us a little bit of insight that dinosaurs are not these mindless, cold-blooded lizards. That is a bird-like behavior if in fact they were doing it. But they also were able to determine that these little dinosaurs are quadrupedal at birth. What that means, quadrupedal for you younger people, quadrupedal means they're walking around on all fours when they hatch out of the egg. And then as they mature, they become bipedal. Walking on two legs is a more energy efficient way to get around, at least for that dinosaur. So they start off walking on all fours and then they mature and walk on their hind legs. And again, the fact that they're born with no teeth and that they're so tiny and they don't seem to have any sort of defense suggests pretty strongly, in my opinion, that these dinosaurs were taking care of their babies. Finally, Sir Richard Owen named this dinosaur back in 1854, and that makes it one of the earliest known dinosaurs. All right, coming up next, I'll have an interview with a young man whose future as a paleontologist looks very, very bright. So hang with me.
Raptors are the most deadly dinosaurs that ever lived, and now you can own their replica claws, feet, and skulls. Imagine your own velociraptor skull or the foot of a giant Utah raptor. Raptor hand claws and deadly killer claws are just some of the items you'll find in our web store. We accept all forms of payment and ship worldwide. Our pricing is affordable and we don't charge outrageous shipping or handling fees. Visit our website at store.dinosaurgeorge.com and start your collection today.
You know, for some people, their interest in dinosaurs and fossils and geology is just a passing fad. That happens to a lot of people, but not for my guest. For him, it seems to be a way of life. Please welcome my guest, Cam Muskelly. Cam, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me on the show.
Hey, it's my pleasure. So listen, before we get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of where you live, sort of give us an overview of who you are.
Well, my name is Karen Muskelly. I'm a amateur paleontologist and geologist here in Georgia, and I live in Duluth, Georgia, in Gwinnett County, and I do a couple of research and a couple of things revolving around paleontology and geology here in my state.
So you're actually in a pretty good state to be able to go to some cool places. So you're fortunate you're there. So let me ask you something. When do you remember when you first became interested in paleontology or in geology in general? Can you remember when it was?
Well, I guess it was around 3 years old. I went to the Hartsfield-Jackson Airport in Atlanta, Georgia, and I saw a large dinosaur skeleton. It was a meat-eating dinosaur called Gangchuangosaurus, which is a Chinese meat-eating dinosaur from the late Jurassic. And I've always wondered about it, and I did a little bit of comparative anatomy in my head. I had a toy that I had that was very similar to the skeleton, and so I started to compare the skeleton to the toy that I had in my hand. Around that particular time, my dad took me to the Fernbank Museum of Natural History in Decatur, Georgia, and we saw large skeletons belonging to a plant-eating dinosaur from Patagonia called Argentinosaurus and a large meat-eating dinosaur called Giganotosaurus. And those particular dinosaurs were on display at the Fernbank Museum of Natural History. And I became fascinated by just dinosaurs. And geology didn't really start until I was probably around in second grade or third grade. I collected my first fossil that day. Was in the back of a trailer. It was basically dumped material. This wasn't natural material coming from a natural formation, but a dumped rock material. And I started looking through rocks trying to find fossils. I was a curious kid, so I started to figure out what I could actually find back there. And I started looking over rocks, and I found my first fossil that day. It was a really interesting find, and I started to really get into paleontology, and I got a couple of friends who really became interested in paleontology because of me.
That's really awesome. That's really cool. And isn't it amazing how visiting a museum or seeing an exhibit can just light a fire in a young person, and why it's so important to take kids to museums? You're a shining example of that.
Indeed, museums played a very large role into my passion for paleontology and geology. And I had a couple of teachers back then who had their own museums, who had their own collections, who I would go down to their classroom. One teacher, I went down to her classroom, and she had a great array of fossils, and I would spend time with her looking through fossils and learning how to identify them.
And that's another excellent point, is what a difference a teacher or a mentor can make to a young person, especially at a time where you're kind of finding your way through life. And if you find an interest in something, it makes such a big difference to have someone older who is willing to encourage that and promote that. So let me ask you something, Cam. Do you have any young people that you've spoken to that you think you're kind of passing along that same mentorship?
Oh, absolutely. I do a couple of lectures in libraries and a couple of lectures in museums, and I see just an amazing array of kids who have their minds open. Because when we're born, we're natural-born scientists. We always are curious about the world, and we wonder about what's out there. So I have my little brother, for example. He's really into dinosaurs because of me. I taught him a lot of things about them, and he's been going out collecting rocks, studying them just like I did over the past couple of years when I was little and now as well. And so I have a couple of family members who have really taken that passion for rocks and minerals from me and have went on to do a couple of great things. And from the lectures I've been doing, a couple of people, I have kids who were really into rocks and minerals and asked me questions about being a scientist and what they could do to learn basic fossils and geology.
Man, good on you, Cam. Good for you for keeping your mind open to understanding the role you can play. I mean, you're not a degreed paleontologist yet, so you're already making an impact on people. I hope you keep that as you kind of progress. So what are your what are your goals going to be as far as education or as far as job? What are you thinking about doing?
I really like to teach. Teaching is one of my passions, and I love to go out and do lectures and teach, and basically teach about the natural world. I do a couple of lectures. I recently did a lecture at the Fernbank Science Center. I was connected with a planetary geologist. His name is Dr. Scott Harris from the Fernbank Science Center, and I did a couple of lectures there. One was on trilobite fossils. The other one was on crinoid fossils. And so I did a couple of lectures there. And so I really like to teach and go out and doing lectures.
Well, doing lectures at those places, what are you, 45 years old, 48 years old? How old are you, Cam?
I'm 18 years old.
Am I speaking to the Cam Muskelly who is doing lectures on trilobites? Are you sure this is you, or have I got you confused with somebody else?
Oh, no, this is definitely me.
So Cam, have you graduated high school yet?
I'm going to be graduating next year in May 2017.
So here is a young man who has taken a passion and is literally turning it into a career before the career has even begun. I'm so incredibly proud. Cam, I'm fortunate to be a friend of yours on Facebook, and I see the different things that you're doing and when you're going out and speaking. And that takes a lot. Let me ask you something. When you did your first one, were you nervous about speaking publicly?
Actually, I guess I was. I set up when I was probably around in middle school. I used to set up a camera, this old raggedy camera, right in front of me, and I was inspired to do that from a YouTube video I saw of a geologist doing lectures. And I said, you know what? I think I'll do the exact same thing he's doing. So I set up a couple of cameras and started recording and stuff like that. And so that really helped me along the way to do lectures out in public, while basically recording myself doing lectures and just in my room by myself, showing rock specimens and fossil specimens to the camera.
Wow. Most people have a very difficult time speaking publicly, and that takes a lot to do that. I remember people saying, some people, it's very hard to get up there and speak publicly. I remember my mother saying, George, we can't get you to shut up. So maybe you've got that bug, Cam. Maybe you're just made to speak in front of the public. Man, that's cool. Hey, let me ask you something. Do you have a preference between paleontology or geology?
Both. Paleontology is connected with geology. In order to understand paleontology, you have to understand the rocks around you. So let's say you're going out in an environment and you're trying to determine, what rocks can you find a Tyrannosaurus rex in? Well, Tyrannosaurus rex is only found in late Cretaceous rocks and terrestrial rocks. So you need to understand the rocks around you, or geology, for example, to understand fossils and the environment that they lived in. So paleontology and geology is all connected together, and they basically work together.
That is an excellent way to put it. Man, you are a good public speaker. You really are. And by the way, to all of our listeners, Cam and I did not practice any of these. I didn't send him anything in advance, so he doesn't have a cheat sheet in front of him. These are literally cold questions just hitting him. So that's a very good answer. That's really good. And let me ask you, since you are such a good speaker, and I have a lot of young people that listen to this, how come you can't find a Tyrannosaurus rex in Georgia?
Well, it's basically because of the geology. Now, here's a good fact. We do have tyrannosaur-like animal found in Georgia, which is known as Allosaurus. This one lived around 70 to 75 million years ago during the late Cretaceous. So we do have Tyrannosaur fossils here in Georgia, but we don't have specifically Tyrannosaurus rex, specifically because of the age difference in the rocks and the sediments that are found here in Georgia. Most of Georgia under that particular time period was underwater over 70 or 75 million years ago. And so the preservation for dinosaur fossils and specifically Tyrannosaurus rex fossils are not common here in the state of Georgia. The rocks here are about 70 to 140 million years old, specifically late Cretaceous age rocks. you want to go to Montana or to Canada or those kinds of places where you have the right age of rocks. Tyrannosaurus rex lived in the environment or lived in the age where the rocks are about 66 to 66.5 million years old. So you would need to go in those particular locations to look at the age of rocks to find a Tyrannosaurus rex.
So rocks to the normal person may look at them and you make the assumption they're all the same age, but that's not the case, right?
Right, that's not the right case. Every rock has its own age and every rock has its own formation.
So different ages of rock are going to produce different ages of animals. So the reason why you don't find Tyrannosaurus rex in your backyard is because your backyard may not have the right layer of dirt exposed for people to see, right?
Correct. And also the environment. Like I said, there were oceans over 70 million years ago. So, and Tyrannosaurus rex lived more of in a terrestrial environment. And so Tyrannosaurus rex couldn't swim, of course. So you're not going to find a Tyrannosaurus rex here in Georgia.
Nice. Okay. So do you have a favorite dinosaur or prehistoric life form? What do you like?
Oh, I always get that question. That's probably the hardest question. Well, I think what I like right now are the dromaeosaurs. There was a new raptor discovered in 2015 called the Raptor. It lived during the late Cretaceous period, right at the end of the dinosaur extinction around 66 million years ago. So that's kind of my favorite new dinosaur now. I used to be a large fan of Spinosaurus. I have a Spinosaurus tooth encased right on my desk, and that used to be my favorite dinosaur. But I really like everything. I love everything. I don't really have a specific dinosaur, but I love everything. I love mammals. I love whales. I love trilobites. I love stromatolites. I love everything that I can get my hands on.
That's cool. Trilobites to me are fascinating because of the variety. You know, most of the time when you say trilobite, people have this vision of the very common one that's always used in images, but there were a huge variety of trilobites, weren't there?
Absolutely, and we have a large variety of trilobites here in Georgia as well.
Have you ever had the chance to excavate any?
Yes, I on April 2000, actually this year, 2016 in April, I went out with a fossil dig with a great friend of mine. His name is Bill Montante. He's a leading expert on trilobites, Cambrian trilobites here in Georgia. And he's really been a great mentor of mine. He invited me on the dig to the Conasauga Formation. And this particular formation, the rocks that we went to are about 497 million years old. So this is around Upper Cambrian in age. And the other rocks, these are northeastern part rocks of the Conasauga Formation. And some of the other rocks found in Georgia are about 505 million years old. So this is a little bit lower Cambrian and older rocks. And so we went out in the field and we started just looking for rocks and splitting open shells with our rock hammers. And I've literally collected over 100 trilobites from that location.
How cool was it when you spotted your first one? What was that like?
I wanted to find more. I kept looking. I was like,
greed. That's a good thing to have when you're a collector. That's a lot of fun. You know, what's crazy about breaking open rocks, I can still remember when I was in my early teens and I was breaking open rocks and I broke one open and there was an ammonite. And I kind of gasped for a moment because it was like I'd seen in so many movies. Finding that first fossil is amazing, but you're right. It makes you want to go a lot deeper into it, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And sometimes you may find something that's completely new to science, just like I did. I've found a trilobite with very long genal spines. These spines are attached to the head of this trilobite, and they were very unusual. So I brought this specimen. The specimen it's pretty small. It's about probably 3 to 4 inches in length. So I sent that specimen off to Columbus State University to Dr. David Schwimmer, who is in charge of the geology department there. And he suggested that this trilobite is known as Espelaspis butzi. and this is the first trilobite known from the northeastern part of the Conestoga Formation. Now, this particular species has been found before, but it hasn't been known since the 1930s or 1940s. I and Bill Montante were the first ones to discover that particular species in the northeastern part of the Conestoga Formation.
How exciting is that? How cool is that, Cam, to be able to be associated with the discovery? First, finding fossils is amazing, but then finding something that has scientific significance has got to be something that you were really excited about.
Absolutely. And we're finding a lot more weirder things in the Conestoga Formation that we haven't even seen before. I found one fossil that's about the size of my pinky. It looks like part of a fish scale or something like that, or an arthropod armor. I sent it off to Dr. David Schwimmer. He couldn't even tell what it was. And so when I'm looking through literature, I'm trying to figure out what these animals are. And some of these animals are strange and weirder. And these are basically aliens that were pulling out of the rock.
You know, that's a lot like the Burgess Shale stuff that comes out, and scientists look at them and make these hypotheses of what they are. And then later on, more discoveries are made and you find out, oh my gosh, I wasn't even close. It turned out to be something completely different. That's one of the exciting things about excavating and unearthing things is you may have something that's easily recognizable, but then you come across these oddities. Does it ever keep you up at night, making you nuts that you can't figure out what you found?
Oh, absolutely. I just feel like I have to imagine these things, because they're fossils that we don't normally see on a day-to-day basis. They're not dinosaurs. And so putting the pieces together may be harder than we expected.
That's cool. Hey, listen, I wanted to mention something to the younger listeners. Cam, you've referred a couple of times to the name of a formation that you're digging in. Explain why a formation or a layer would be given a name.
Basically because of where this particular rock that you're finding in. So let's say you're going into the Hell Creek Formation. That specific name has to deal with the location in which you're in. Some formations are not known, and we're still finding new formations, but sometimes the names are due to the fossil content or to the age of which you're digging in.
Right. So if you were speaking to a paleontologist and you said you found this trilobite in that formation, to a paleontologist, it lets them know immediately what time period you were digging in, right?
Yes.
Cool. Hey, listen, I want to ask you something. Seems to me like I remember seeing something about you being honored with an exhibit in a museum that was dedicated to you. Am I right?
You're absolutely right, sir.
Tell us about that.
I was just going through, I was literally just sitting down writing things about paleontology, and one of the people, his name is Rick Spears, he works with the Burbank Science Center, and he said, well, how would you like to be on display as the paleontologist of Georgia exhibit? And I said, wow, that's very honoring. And so he put me up there, and it gave me a description of what I've been doing and a lot of the things that I've been researching over the years and how I became interested in geology. And so that was a really great honor to be a part of. Congratulations
to you, Cam. Most people have to die before they become an exhibit in a museum. So count yourself very lucky that you weren't really old when they approached you with that, because that would have meant you were close to dying. You realize that, right?
Pretty much so.
Well, that is exciting. So let me ask you, Cam, what are your future plans? What are you thinking about as far as school and as far as a career? Do you have any idea yet?
Still trying to figure that out. That's one part of my life that I'm still trying to figure out. I really would like to go to college out west because, of course, there's rocks there that are about the bright age for dinosaurs, and I want to do a couple of research out there. But I also would like to teach. I would like to teach because one of the things that I've struggled throughout my life is being an autistic. I have Asperger's syndrome, and so Paleontology is a really great passion of mine, but actually working with disability and children who are on the autism spectrum is one of my dearest passions as well. So I would like to be an advocate for people who are on the autism spectrum and to also teach geology and paleontology as both of my passions combined.
You know, one of the things I'm called upon to do a lot is I work a lot with autistic children. And it takes, because I wasn't familiar with it, and I've been doing this for 19 years, so I finally learned. But what I discovered is many autistic children especially have the ability to absorb at a level that I don't think the average person can understand. You know, maybe they don't communicate it as well, but what they can absorb and retain is fascinating. And they love dinosaurs. They love they love the weights, the lengths, the sizes. You would be the perfect ambassador to bring science to those young people, because you understand that there are certain difficulties involved with having Asperger's and having any of those, that you might be the perfect teacher to be able to have an appreciation for the various things that they deal with. So I'm very excited about your future, and I think you would make a tremendous teacher, just the way you've spoken in this interview. You're very articulate, and you're intelligent, and you're certainly respectful. I hope that if that's your choice, I hope you become a teacher, because Cam, I can't think of anybody that would be better to bring what you know to the masses, not just to people who maybe are dealing with Asperger's or anything, but just to anybody. But I hope that's what you choose to do.
Thank you very much, sir. One of the other things I hope to research are the dinosaurs here in Georgia. You know, there are not a lot of dinosaurs here. We have a couple of other species. We have ornithomimids. We have raptorial-like dinosaurs. We have other dinosaurs such as Tyrannosaur-like dinosaurs from Georgia. And the first dinosaur fossils that were discovered here were from the 1970s by Dr. David Schwimmer of Columbia State University. And so not a lot of dinosaur fossils have been found recently. The most recent find was back in 2010, was with my partner, Bill Montante. He found a large and second most complete Appalachiosaurus tooth in Georgia. And that specimen has been donated to the Telus Science Museum in Cartersville, Georgia. So I think a lot of my work will deal with the Georgian paleontology and looking at the different types of rock layers and looking through and see if we can find more dinosaurs of the Appalachian continent.
Nice. So are there any geology or paleontology clubs that you are associated with there?
Yes, I am associated with the Georgia Mineral Society, and that's just a couple of miles from my house. I go there and I do a couple of lectures there as well. My first lecture was on dinosaur paleobiology. My second lecture was on dinosaurs from the state of Georgia. And I believe my third lecture was with pterosaurs or something like that. And so I've done a couple of lectures at the Georgia Mineral Society, and we're all connected with geologists and paleontologists from there. I'm really connected with a couple of geologists and paleontologists in this state as well. Dr. Tony Martin, who is an ichnologist who studies trace fossils, is a leading expert on trace fossils, and I've been able to meet him a couple of times. I'm also in a club at school called the Science Olympiad, and it's really great. I've won medals on competitions dealing with geology, and I've met a couple of geologists on my way there, like Dr. Pamela Gore, who is in charge of the geology department, and he's a professor at Georgia State University.
So maybe you ought to start your own paleontology club, because I have a feeling that there are more people out there who absolutely love dinosaurs, but they may not have as much understanding about the minerals and the geology side. But if it was something that was dinosaur related, you may find a huge group of people that would probably love to, and again, the benefit of everything being online now is you don't necessarily have to have face-to-face meetings. I mean, just through your Facebook page, you're constantly promoting things that you're doing. I'd sure like to see you maybe do that, realizing time is tough, but I'd sure like to see you do that someday, maybe in your future, Cam?
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking about doing that in my near future. I was thinking about doing a geology club here at school, but not enough people signed up. But I wanted to do something very similar to that in the future.
Well, and one of the things you'll find, especially in high school, is that high school is an uncomfortable age for most young people, because even if you really like something, there's such an odd bit of peer pressure that exists out there that sometimes you'll find that they won't step forward to show you their enthusiasm for fear that somehow they're going to be outed. And so you may find that on a grander scale than your school, that as word spreads, you may find people coming out of the woodwork that would love to be associated. Maybe that's something you could do via Facebook initially, is create a Georgia Paleontology Society and see. But again, I understand it takes a lot of time, and it sounds like you're a pretty busy young man. But again, I just think you could have such a positive impact on the science of paleontology by getting in front of more young people and getting them to follow in your footsteps. I think you could really make a big impression on a lot of young people.
Oh, thank you. I greatly appreciate that. That's something that I've been thinking about over the years, and I'll give it more thought over during the future.
Well, he is an up-and-coming paleontologist whose name I have no doubt you will see in the future. His hard work and dedication to paleontology and geology should be applauded. Cam Muskelly, I am proud to call you a friend, and I wish you all the best of luck in the world.
Thank you very much, sir. I greatly appreciate that.
Okay, that was an interview with future paleontologist Cam Muskelly, a very fine young man. I plan on doing more interviews with some of the up-and-coming players in the field of paleontology, so if you enjoyed that, stay tuned because I'll certainly do more of it. Okay, when we come back, I'll answer a couple of questions from our listeners.
It's time to ask Dinosaur George. In this segment, George answers your questions about paleontology. If you would like to leave a voice message, call us at 210-888-9077. This is not a toll-free call, so children, please ask your parents' permission. If you would like to submit your question in writing, go to dinosaurgeorge.com and click the Ask Dinosaur George page. Questions are chosen at random and we clear all messages monthly. So if you have a question about paleontology, ask Dinosaur George.
We'll start off with James from Essex, England. My buddy James. Hey, DG, it's James from Friendsbook. Oh, man. He said, sorry, I had to do that for old time's sake. That Friendsbook thing is going to haunt me for the rest of my life. What happened is I made a mistake one time, mind you, where I, instead of saying Facebook, I said Friendsbook. And it has haunted me ever since with my friends who tease me about it relentlessly. So, James, one day I will meet you and your uppins will come. Your uppins will come. All right. He says, I hope you're well and I'm loving the podcast. Well, good, James. Thank you. He says they used up far less data. That I'm glad to hear. I appreciate that very much, that it's easier to listen to a podcast than it was to watch a video. All right, here's my question. Who do you think could win in a fight? A pack of Jurassic Park and Jurassic World raptors, or a pride of lions with males and females? Also, if birds of prey don't fly and hunt in flocks, but raptor means bird of prey, why does science assume they hunted together? Keep up the fantastic work, James. Okay, James, your first question. And by the way, thank you very much, buddy. I appreciate that greatly. Okay, to your first question. And the reason why he notated a pack of raptors, those depicted in Jurassic Park and Jurassic World, was because those are not velociraptors. They're not even close to the size of a velociraptor. He's saying if those raptors were to fight a pride of lions that included both males and females, well, I just don't know. When you throw animals from two different worlds literally together, it's very difficult to come up with a legitimate answer. So it can only be a guess. And in my opinion, I believe, based on the raptors' build and weaponry, I think that they might, even though lions are going to be considerably smarter, I don't think a lion would stand a chance against something like a raptor, especially one as big as the ones they showed you. Like Utah raptor and Dakota raptor, these things are so large that, I think they'd have a hard time dealing with anything like a pack of those raptors. Now to your question, If birds of prey don't fly and hunt in flocks, but raptor means bird of prey, why do scientists assume that raptors hunted together? Okay, that's a brilliant point. That's an excellent point, James. All right, raptor means bird of prey. And there's a group of dinosaurs that most people refer to as raptors, and they all share a couple of distinct features, one of which is this big curved claw on their foot. So people pick up on the word raptor and they apply it to any of those dinosaurs with a curved claw on their foot. Now, raptor does not mean that specific dinosaur. The curved claw actually belongs to a group that better to refer to them as dromaeosaurs. That's really who they are, because raptor is also a term that paleontologists apply to things like Tyrannosaurus rex, and they certainly do not have that curved claw on their foot. So let's make sure we're clear on that. Okay, why is it that they refer to them as raptors, and then perhaps they don't share the same behavior as modern birds of prey? Well, they didn't name the dinosaur. The raptor isn't used as a term to refer to behavior. It's a term that is used to refer to the skeletal design, that they have hollow bones, that they are built more bird-like, and since they are predatory in nature, raptor is the correct term to give to them. So the implication of something is called a raptor doesn't mean it behaves like modern raptors. It's more that it is built very bird-like and it's a predator. Finally, though, how do we know they hunted together? There's a lot of evidence that suggests that these dinosaurs are living and dying together. And there's Utah raptor been found together. Deinonychus have been found together. And it demonstrates that if you die together at the same time in the same place, you were there alive before whatever happened. It's unlikely that a flood washes in dinosaurs of same species that kind of segregate them into different areas to pile up. So that's why they believe that they hunted together. But that's a very, very good question, and I've enjoyed answering it. All right, Finn. My buddy Finn from Stanley, County Durham, England. Hello, Mr. Blasting. I hope you're doing well. I'm your number one fan here in England, and I appreciate you taking your time to answer my questions, as I know you're busy. Finn, it's always great to answer your questions. And again, Finn, I really appreciate your courtesy, your respect, and your manners. But I'm more than happy with anyone just calling me George, Dinosaur George, DG, hey you. But those are the only words to call me. Some of the things other people would like to call me, that's not okay. All right, here's this question. Who would win in a fight, Gorgonopsids or Allosaurus? Thank you for answering my question. Finn, P.S. My favorite dinosaurs are Utah Raptor and Allosaurus. Well, you have great taste, Finn, because I like both of those dinosaurs as well. Now, to your question about Gorgonopsids or Allosaurus, they are so distinctively different size-wise, strength-wise, ability-wise. A Gorgonopsid might get a couple of bites in, but Allosaurus is so enormous that when he finally grabs that Gorgonopsid, and he's going to grab him sooner or later, whether he grabs him with his hands, his teeth, or his foot, that's going to end the fight immediately. So Gorgonopsid can bite him as much as he wants, be a little ankle biter, but he's not going to do as much damage as Allosaurus when those jaws clamp down. Okay, let's go to Sahir from Bordertown, South Australia. Hey, DG, long time no see. I agree, Sahir. I do miss doing the videos, but I simply can't. So this is as good as we got to be, as my lousy voice. I have an interesting question about designing dinosaurs for horror movies. Ooh. If you could find an inspiration from a movie monster while keeping accuracy for a dinosaur design, what ideas could pop in your head? One idea for me is referencing the infamous American Werewolf from An American Werewolf in London for Tyrannosaurus. Hey, this is kind of a fun question. All right, here's one. Tyrannosaurus for Freddy Krueger. Okay, that was too easy. What about, what's his name? What about Altaspinax for Igor? And finally, let me think. Okay. Apatosaurus for Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde because he keeps changing back and forth. Oh, what a zinger that is. You've got to love paleontology to get these jokes. Those are hilarious. I don't care who you are. That's funny right there. So you're good to hear from you, buddy. I hope everything is well in Australia, by the way. All right. Camden from Brooklyn, Connecticut. Hey, DG, I hope you're doing well. I am, Camden. Good to hear from you. Do you think that Tyrannosaurus had feathers? I think they did. They probably had a light. Okay. You guys want to hear this? That's my ringtone. I forgot to turn my phone off, and that's somebody calling me right in the middle of this. Yes, when that phone goes off and I'm in stores, people run for cover because it sounds like a Tyrannosaurus Rex has made an appearance. And how appropriate to get that call when we're talking about Tyrannosaurus Rex. You can't script this stuff, baby. You can't script it. Okay, so he said, I think that they did have feathers. They probably had a light coat covering their body as well as colorful tail fan. They don't need too much feathers since they lived in a warm environment. Thanks for your time and have a nice day. Camden, more and more evidence points towards theropods and now maybe even herbivores having a covering of what appeared to be fur or hair or feathers. I still am hanging on to the idea that Tyrannosaurus is simply too big and that feathers would not serve any purpose other than display. And if that is the case, I don't think they would be all over the body. They might be on the head, the arms, or the tail, but I just can't imagine the need, what function they would have for the animal. Again, I may be proven wrong, but for now, I'm hanging on to that. I'm hanging on to that idea that they did not have feathers, at least not big ones and not body ones. Okay, Anthony from Corpus Christi, Texas. Hey, that's right down the road from where I live. Hey, DG, how's it going? It's going good, Anthony. I was wondering if you liked that Gyrosphere Valley scene in Jurassic World, and if you think it would be great to see all the different dinosaurs presented there living together despite being separated for millions of years. P.S. Jurassic Fight Club is my favorite show ever. Thank you, Anthony. That's very kind of you. Yeah, that scene was awesome when those two kids were sitting in that gyrosphere and they're kind of floating across the ground, rolling across the ground, and you see all those different dinosaurs. Man, I would love to see something like that. Whether or not those dinosaurs would tolerate each other, who knows? You know, the herbivores probably would, but I don't know. For me, it was a great scene, and man, if you could travel back in time, even though you're not going to see dinosaurs from different eras, just imagine the scene of just dinosaurs walking around. It is absolutely incredible. Okay, everybody, that is it for today. For those of you who found our featured creature, Massospondylus, interesting, I hope that you'll do some research on this animal and learn more about it. My thanks to future paleo star Cam Muskelly for spending time with us, and a special thank you to all of you who have taken the time to write in with your questions. Until next time, take care of yourselves and those around you. Be kind to people, even if they look, act, or think differently than you. Take care, everybody, and please share this podcast with your friends. It makes it much more likely that I'll be able to continue to give time to make them. Thanks so much. Take care, you guys.
Thank you for listening to the Dinosaur George Show. Please follow us on our social media links and join our mailing list. If you're interested in having Dinosaur George speak at your event, please visit our website at dinosaurgeorge.com. Until next time, keep digging for clues about the past.